Here's another show you can enjoy in the True Story FM family of entertainment podcasts. Hey, Pete, ever wonder what Steven Spielberg's favorite film is?
You know, Andy, I've heard he loves classics like Lawrence of Arabia, Meet Me in St. Louis.
Imagine chatting with him about why those films resonate with him so much.
That's exactly what we do on our podcast, Movies We Like. We've had incredible guests like actress Dee Wallace, cinematographer Eric Messerschmidt, director Steve Miner, and former Disney animators Tom and Tony Bancroft.
They share their favorite films and the impact they've had on their careers, offering fascinating insights into the craftsmanship and storytelling techniques that make these movies so special.
If you're curious about the magic behind the scenes, subscribe to Movies We Like from True Story FM on your favorite podcast app. New episodes are released on the fourth Monday of each month with early access for our members.
Join us on Movies We Like as we explore the movies we all like with the people who make them.
And Stephen, our people will call your people. Let's make this happen, puppy.
Subscribe today.
Okay, now for the lightning round.
I'm so good at lightning rounds. That's from Friends. It's my favorite show.
20 seconds on the clock starts now. Who is the captain of the USS Enterprise?
Oh, crap. Is it, Captain Stubing? No, Morgan? Crunch?
Next question. Which superhero is Tony Stark?
Stark. Did Game of Thrones have superheroes? I only watched 2 episodes.
What planet were Luke and Leia born on?
Planet Fitness?
Oh, time's up. Sorry. And now, a word from our sponsor.
Hey everybody, Mandy Kaplan here. Please check out my podcast, Make Me a Nerd, where each week an incredible guest tries to baptize this mainstream mom into the world of sci-fi, fantasy, and all things nerdy. Available wherever you podcast.
That's our show, folks.
Wait, I just thought of it. Padme Amidala gave birth to her twins Luke and Leia on Polis Massa. No, that's dumb. Is it Planet Hollywood?
Hello and welcome to the most excellent 80s movies podcast. It's the podcast where a filmmaker and a comedian experiment their way through the 80s movies we think we love or might have missed with these our modern grown-up eyes to see how they hold up. This is Real Genius, a movie selection from 1985 about which Google says, when science whiz Mitch Taylor, played by Gabe Jarrett, arrives at Pacific Tech as a freshman, he's paired up with genius senior Chris Knight, played by Val Kilmer, to work on a laser project. Mitch initially doesn't care for Knight's slacker attitude, but is eventually won over, and their friendship allows them to make new progress on the laser project. It's only when the boys learn that government intends to use the laser as a weapon that they start to question what they've actually been working for. Dun dun dun! All right, here comes the trailer.
I don't want to hear about any problems, Don. Just as long as we have a working weapon by the end of June.
I haven't had a working weapon since Korea.
When the military runs short on brains, they go hunting at Pacific Tech, an exclusive institution for outstanding intellects, where the superstar of smarts is Chris Knight.
You have a jacuzzi?
Absolutely.
His hobbies violate the laws of gravity.
What are you doing out there?
Floating, sir.
His homework could win a Nobel Prize.
He's one of the 10 finest minds in the country.
And his IQ is higher than most people can count.
I can't stand it. Have you ever seen a body like this before in your life? She happens to be my daughter. Oh, well, then I guess you have.
But when Chris makes the scientific discovery of the century,
You did it.
his classmates want the credit.
You're not number one around here anymore.
His professor wants the publicity.
Hi.
That's it.
And the military wants to use his discovery as the ultimate weapon.
This is not good.
So Chris is about to turn getting even into a science.
Crossbow is on distributor and all systems are go.
And show them
Roger.
Open bomb bay doors.
they should never try to outsmart a real genius.
Was no longer lasing efficiently. It's not shutting down.
Shut it down.
Real genius.
Number one is a hard time in the making.
Boy, they really lean on Val Kilmer on that one.
They sure do. But I mean, what else are you gonna lean on? Nobody else in this movie, I mean, aside from William Atherton, is like ever in any movie ever again.
Mm-hmm. No, I feel like they should have leaned more like on the hijinks of the school.
Yeah, because there was definitely a lot of hijinks.
Yeah, it's really kind of Harry Potter, but for science nerds, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the school
The
is their
Hogwarts, yeah.
Hogwarts.
Yeah, exactly.
There are 2 boys and a girl in their little gang.
Ugh, it's such a ripoff.
It's such a 1985 ripped off Harry Potter. Well, I'm Krissy Lenz, one of the directors at the Neighborhood Comedy Theater in downtown Mesa, Arizona, and I am the comedian for this podcast. And with me is
Nathan Blackwell, independent filmmaker with Squishy Studios.
And is this a favorite film of yours?
Is this a favorite film of yours?
It was actually, yes.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I found this movie very quotable. I found this movie very rewatchable. I watched it constantly, and I had I think I mentioned it before, but when I was in like junior high, my dad had a video editing business.
Oh, right.
And so I would make all these clip movies of my favorite lines and clips from movies, and there was a lot of real genius in there.
This was one of those movies that I only caught like on HBO during the day at my grandpa's house or like on TV. And so I never rented it. We didn't own it, but I've probably seen it like 5 or 6 times. But because you're catching it on TV, like you're catching it in sections. Like I feel like I've probably seen the movie like 6 times. It was definitely a favorite. You know, I was a sucker, especially as a kid, for like the wacky genius. Oh, he's so wacky, you know.
He is. He's such a smart ass. He goes against the norm. I love him.
Yeah, and it was a big favorite. But there's some sections where it's like, oh, I don't know if I've seen like the first 15 minutes more than once. You know?
Right,
like
right.
I don't recognize any of this. Like there's some parts that I, you know, are like you know, it's like a movie that's really ingrained into you as a kid. Like you remember the sound effects, you know, like you remember the moment, like the lines and some of the sound effects and just like the pacing and rhythm of the scene, you know. You can close your eyes and see it, but I have no memory of like the first like 10 or so minutes of the movie.
No,
So-
me neither. And I had this on VHS, so I watched it all the way through every time I watched it. And I have like no memory of all the Pentagon guys at the beginning being like, we need weapons.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, no, this one is, you know, I would say on the shorthand of movies 80s movies that are my favorite, but acknowledging that it's not necessarily like the best 80s movies. It's just for whatever reason it aligned with the stuff you watched and the stuff you really connected to as a kid and really enjoyed.
Yeah. And this movie made me love Val Kilmer.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny, like he, especially this like 1985 Val Kilmer, I had a cousin who had like the identical same like smile and laugh. And he would always remind me of Val Kilmer.
Oh, that's fun. I want a Val Kilmer cousin. You lucky duck.
Well, I mean, it was just during that time, that age. He grew out of it.
Oh, that's too bad. So we start with a plane flying in space, and a space laser zaps a guy out of his chair, And the pilot goes, just like shooting ducks out of a barrel.
Uh-huh. And then you realize it's just all a reenactment. It's just all like a pitch video.
Yeah. And like all the Pentagon men are in there laughing about what a quandary it is to make a weapon such as this. One guy is like, I won't do it. It's no good. And they're like, well, you'll have to be liquidated. And they're like, liquidated? Oh no. I guess we better get this weapon going. And there's one little squirrely wormy guy who apparently is on top of this deadline.
Yes. So yeah, all the military guys are twisting their mustaches. Just make it happen, nerds. And the person in charge of the program is our the one of the champion assholes of all 80s movies, William Atherton, as seen in Die Hard and Ghostbusters. Here, Pitch Perfect again
as Dr. Hathaway.
Yeah, and he's a professor at basically Pacific University, which is like a stand-in for Caltech.
Yeah. And he also hosts a Bill Nye type science show.
Right. So he's a local celebrity.
So we cut to a science fair where Mitch, who is 15, is being accepted into Pacific Tech by Dr. Hathaway. Dr. Hathaway has a encounter with Mitch's parents, and he's like, Mitch isn't by chance adopted, is he? That's fascinating. And they're like, no, he's ours. And he's like, really? And he says to Mitch, compared to you, most people have the IQ of a carrot. Come to my school and you'll work with the best of the best.
Right. So he's Hagriding him into Hogwarts, into science nerd Hogwarts. And everything is exciting people.
Yep. Next we meet Chris Knight, who's touring a lab where he has a job waiting for his graduation.
Yeah. So Val Kilmer is a legend. And he's excited to meet him, and it turns out that he's a bit of a goof.
Yeah, he's wearing little bobbly alien sparkler baubles on his head, and the man says to him, "Why are you wearing that on your head?" And he said, "Because if I wear it anywhere else, it chafes." Like that's the kind of response you're gonna get from Chris Knight.
Right. Yeah. He's kind of the king of the campus. He doesn't really care about popularity. He just cares at this point he's a senior now, in his college career, is just kind of like going against the grain.
Mm-hmm. But he's got this cushy job waiting for him. He's interviewing with the guy. He's like, is there a jacuzzi? And he's like, of course. He hands him over to a woman who he flirts with. And she's like, I've met 7 out of the 10 of the best minds in the country. And he's like, oh, okay. And they flirt.
Right.
Meanwhile, Mitch finds his way to Pacific Tech, and he's in the dorm, and it's all chaos.
Mm-hmm.
A man comes in and goes into the closet and disappears.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, Chris is there standing on his head. And he's like, I used to be you, and lately I've been missing me, so I asked Hathaway if I could room with me again, and he said sure.
Classic.
So they're roommates. Chris has taken all his clothes and put it away.
Mm-hmm. One of the things I enjoy about this movie is that it's like all the main characters are smart but socially awkward.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not like, like shows like The Big Bang Theory. It's like, oh my god, he's so nerdy. Like it's geared towards outside people, and nerdy is ridiculous,
Right.
Like for this, the smart people are the protagonists, like everyone. It's like if everyone, it's like Revenge of the Nerds again is kind of like such an exaggeration, but for this, it's like all the smart people are allowed to be real people,
Mm-hmm.
and they're just having fun, and it's the things that they do that's fun and silly,
Yeah.
I'm not articulating it well, but basically the smart nerds are allowed to be people.
Yeah, and they're all sort of equals.
Yeah. And you see it's like this is like during the age of college school hijinks movies, and there is it is ultimately a silly movie, but there is a lot more like, oh, okay, so there was some research done in the scenes. Like it's not, even though the whole MacGuffin, the whole thing with the laser is ultimately science fiction, like everything that they're talking about, they diligently did research on how lasers actually work. And so all the the scientific gobbledygook that they do rings as true,
Right.
as does like the hijinks. Like they based a lot of these hijinks off of real, like sort of like legends of Caltech and other like scientific institutes, of like the kids kind of like partying and doing crazy things on campus. And so the fun of this movie is that kind of like Hogwarts aspect of like, oh, this is all the smart kids coming together and kind of messing with magic, creating like liquid nitrogen coins into and slotting them into the soda machine, or creating like snow in the hallways and things like that.
Yeah, the next day, when Mitch comes out of his dorm room, all of the halls are filled with ice.
Yes.
That's when Mitch meets Jordan, who's this cute girl who talks very fast and never ever sleeps. And she's like, "Do you have a bed? If you didn't have a bed, I was going to make you a bed, but you have a bed, so that's fine."
Mm-hmm.
And the ice is a really cool, like you said, it's magic. It goes from ice to gas, and it disappears, which
Yeah.
is really cool. And Chris is like, "Why do I bother trying to have fun with you nerds? Like, nobody signed up for the Madame Curie lookalike contest except one guy, and he was disqualified later. So why do I bother trying to have fun with you guys?" The man comes in again and goes into the closet and disappears. And Mitch keeps trying to figure out where he's going when he goes into the closet. Mitch is trying to pee, and Jordan comes into the bathroom. She made him a sweater, and she's trying to try it on him while he's peeing. And she's like, "I never sleep." And he's like, "Well, I can't pee while you're in here." And she's like, "Okay, that's weird."
Mm-hmm.
When he finally asks Chris about the guy living in his closet, he's like, "Why do you keep going in the closet? There's a guy who keeps going into the closet." He's like, "Well, why do you keep going into the closet? I'm going in to get my clothes, but that's not why he's going in there." And he's like, "No, of course not. You got 20 points higher than me on the assessment exam, and you think a big guy like that can wear your clothes?" There's a lot of montages in this movie. There's a studying
Mm-hmm.
and laser doing montage. He's going to his lecture class, and he sees a few tape recorders, and then he goes back and it's all tape recorders, and then he goes back again, and even the teacher is a tape recorder.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, Mitch follows Laszlo, or we eventually learn his name is Laszlo Holyfeld, so I'm just going to call him Laszlo because I already know that. He follows him into the steam tunnels, where there's this little rocket that takes him on an almost roller coaster, and he finds this lab home of this recluse guy who's living in the tunnels behind their closet.
Right. So Laszlo, this mysterious guy who keeps disappearing into his closet, we learn that he used to be the top student, until the stress eventually broke him. We get to see, like, they're not only sort of pushing towards like their final exams, but the whole laser project that that William Atherton is forcing them to do. And so it's, you see people crack. There's a guy who has a freak out during a study session and just, screams, leaving the room. You see all the pressure that they're putting themselves under, and Laszlo is kind of that cautionary tale. He's become kind of a mysterious but silly hermit who lives still on campus because he kind of cracked.
Yeah, he cracked up.
He cracked. So that's
Now he lives in the closet.
Yeah, so that's kind of one of the reasons why Val Kilmer is kind of like, he saw himself putting himself under all that pressure, and then towards his senior year, or he decided to say screw it, and kind of go wacky.
Yeah, he decided to play as hard as he works.
Yeah.
The next thing we see is William Atherton threatening Val Kilmer if he doesn't solve the power problem by May, he's not going to graduate. He's like using his power over him, and like we've seen him, he's having a new house built. And we've already been given the impression that he is sort of embezzling the money that the government is giving him. And having the students solve the laser problem while he is embezzling the money and having his house redone.
So what is it about William Atherton that makes him such a delicious a-hole? Like he in Ghostbusters, he's super aggressive. Yep. In this one, we get more screen time than we probably do in Die Hard and Ghostbusters combined.
Yes,
and it's not such an aggressive a-hole. It's more of just kind of like being that constant kind of heavy pressure on them,
and threatening their graduation and threatening their livelihood and stuff like that.
Right. At the same time, having these strict rules of like, don't wear shoes in my house. I hate popcorn. He hates dogs, or at least one specific dog, and so we get all these little things to where he puts himself above everyone else.
He does put himself above everyone else, and he treats everyone like garbage.
Yeah.
Including the defense guy.
Yeah. We haven't even talked about Kent yet.
Oh yeah, Kent is this sort of blowhard who's a lackey for Hathaway, who picks up his dry cleaning and stuff.
It's funny, like in a normal college movie, this would be the jock of jocks. And instead, he's still kind of a bully, but he's even nerdier than some of them,
Yeah.
Which is funny. So it's interesting having this different take on like the classic college hijinks 80s movie.
Yeah, speaking of Kent being an asshole, Mitch is like gonna work on the laser project with Mitch, but he sets the laser up to take them down a winding path, and he's like telling everyone in the school, they're like, what is this laser? And he's like, it's not what, it's where, follow it. And so they follow it to a party where he has student beauticians. He's like taking the auditorium of the school, which I'm like, why does the school have an auditorium in the first place? And he's turned it into a pool party where the orchestra pit is filled with water. There's a big inflatable slide. And it's like a party with like burgers and food and like all these like cute beauticians. And when the nerds show up, he's like, look, you've got all night to study, but there's student beauticians here, and you might have to consider that this may be your only opportunity ever in your lives to have sex. So everyone takes the night off to party, but Kent tattles on them to Hathaway, and Mitch gets yelled at. Mitch gets in trouble, and he gets shamed.
Shame.
He goes back to the school, and he's working in the lab, and he just can't focus because he's so upset, and he calls his mom. And he's like, Mom, I want to come home. And she's like, you can't come home. We've rented out your room. And he's like, well, can't we share it?
And like, then Kent has been recording this conversation.
And he plays it on the loudspeaker in the cafeteria the next day for everyone to hear. Mitch decides to pack up, and Chris comes in, and they have a heart-to-heart scene where he's like, look, I thought this place was going to be different, but it's just more of the same. And Chris is like, look, I wasn't kidding. I used to be like you, but then I followed Holyfield. And he tells him the story about he used to be the number one stud, and he cracked so severely he thought that the answers were the answers to everything, and the stuff that he was making was killing people. So he's like, look, use your mind creatively, stay, and we'll get even with Kent. It's a moral imperative. So they disassemble Kent's car and reassemble it in his room.
Mm-hmm.
Which, isn't that something we see in another like teen romp movie?
Yeah, I feel like it is. Yeah, their second prank is much better.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's way more unique and iconic. When they basically use his braces as a transmitter and start talking to him like they're Jesus.
I love that part.
Yeah.
So we're getting close to the apex. They're putting more and more pressure on William Atherton, so he's putting more and more pressure on Chris. He's like, Chris, listen, I'm giving Kent the job. Even if you pass, you don't pass. You're out. You'll never work in this field again. So Chris gets sort of sad, and he's like, Hathaway's going to flunk me out. And Mitch is like, you can't give up. You can't leave. We have to get even with Hathaway. It's a moral imperative. Oh, they're supporting each other. Isn't that great? So there's another montage of lasers and studying. They talk to Laszlo, and he's like, I got you all the answers to every test question that Hathaway's ever asked. And they're like, great, where are the questions? And he's like, I memorized them. And they're like, of course you did. But he is carrying all these little cards, and they're like, what's that? And he's like, I'm applying for the Frito-Lay sweepstakes. There's no purchase necessary. Enter as many times as you want. So I am. And this batch makes 11,500 entries, and he should win 33% of the prizes. All right, so we cut to the creepiest scene in this whole movie. Mitch goes to his room to call it a night, and there's a woman in there. It's the woman from Chris's job interview.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, I've been waiting 3 years for this. For what? For you to be old enough. For what? For this. And then she smooches on him. And it's like, you've been waiting since he was 12? You're gross.
Uh-huh.
He's still only 15, and you're a grown woman. Get off him. Stop it. Yuck, 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 yuck.
Yeah, this character is the only one I really have a problem with in the movie, you know? Like, say what you will, it's spoiler, like, it's a fun movie, you know? Maybe there's some parts that are now for today's audience just a bit slow. Like, I felt like it could have cut 5-10 minutes out, but this character is the only one that I really had a with, you know.
Yeah, and she lifts right out. So let's get rid of her.
Yeah. Bloop.
Bloop. Goodbye. But it does prompt Mitch to go to Jordan and say, like, I didn't want to be with her. I told her no. I wanted to be with you. And she's like, oh, and they smooch. But she's 19 and he's still only 15.
Details.
It's not as cute as you want it to be.
Right.
So, Hathaway is yelling at the defense guy. It's the exam. Kent messes up the laser, and the laser implodes because of what Kent did. And Kent brags about it, and Chris Knight freaks out, and he knocks the liquid nitrogen out of the fridge, and he's looking at it, and he's like, wait a minute, I just solved this problem. I just had an epiphany. We have to freeze the laser. And Chris demonstrates his new idea for the laser, and he's like, here's the thing, though. You can only use it once because it's going to destroy itself as it turns into a laser, but they're going to hit their target of power. So they fire the laser, and it bursts through the target. It bursts through the cinder block. It bursts through the wall. And Hathaway's like, okay, cool. You did it. You get the job. You get to graduate. You win. I'm going to take this to the defense guys. But he doesn't say that out loud. He says it with his eyes.
With his mind's eye. Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is when Laszlo is like, well, what is the application of a high-powered laser that can be that can only last for a few seconds,
Mhm.
what is what do you think is the only use for this sort of thing?
And they're like, the applications are limitless. And he's like, no, they're really not. You could, but you could vaporize a human target from space. And they're like, oh shit, what have we done?
And now basically entering the third act of the film, and it kind of, in a lot of way, mirrors Top Gun. It's like
Yeah.
2/3 of the movie has been at school and training and competition and bullies and figuring out friends and things like that. And now the last third is the mission.
Yeah. So this is when they put a antenna on Kent's braces and talk to him like they're Jesus. And they're like, Kent, where did he take the laser? And he's like, I don't know, but there's a test tomorrow morning. And they're like, okay, great. You need to go to Hathaway's house and wait for us there. So they follow Hathaway. They crack this password to get into the base. They see the big this big spaceship. They break in and they swap their tracking system for new coordinates. And then they sneak away. So they drag the dean of the school to Hathaway's house, as well as a congressman.
It was easier in the 80s.
Yeah, you could just kidnap a congressman.
Lure. They were luring. They didn't kidnap. They were luring.
Right. So the test is happening. Kent goes into the house even though they tell him not to, and he finds a big foil ball. The laser fires, and it floods into Hathaway's house. Kent rides out on a wave of popcorn. The big foil ball is popcorn, and Kent rides out on a wave of popcorn. The house explodes with popcorn.
Right. We kind of skipped over that they infiltrated a military installation.
They did. Just on bravado.
And a fake mustache.
Yeah. Which is one of the funnier scenes. He's like, come on, buddy. Let us in. Someday you might be in the private sector, too. Laszlo pulls up in an RV. He's getting married to the woman who wanted to bone Mitch. And she's like, he's the number one brain. I'm going to marry him. And we're all happy for them. Like, good. He's an age-appropriate man. And he's like, I only won 31% of the prizes, so I'll have to figure that out someday. And then kids scamper in the popcorn, and Hathaway comes home to see that his house is sideways and full of popcorn. And that's the end of the movie. They don't tell you what happens to anything. Like, they don't tell you what happens to Chris.
We have a slow motion, Tears for Fears, everyone wants to rule the world montage. What more do you need? I mean, that's
what happened.
That's the 80s. That's the perfect 80s ending. Slow motion kids jumping in popcorn as like the teenagers are hugging each other and kissing each other, and William Atherton is driving up and being angry at his house. And then credits are rolling. That's the perfect 80s ending.
But does he go to jail?
It's who knows? Who knows? Stop asking these questions. I feel like.
Uh-oh, are you gone?
No, I just stopped talking.
Oh, okay.
That's an edit point.
Okay.
So what do you think happened?
Hopefully he goes to jail. Hopefully they all go to jail. I mean,
everyone, even the kids.
No, not the kids, but Hathaway. I mean, he's such a jerk. You want to see him get his comeuppance.
Well, the dean saw it, so he's probably in epic hot water with the dean, right?
And the congressman saw it.
Right. So that's more of the military guys getting in trouble, But maybe also, yeah. My guess is in typical 80s fashion that William Atherton is probably ruined, under investigation, kicked out of the college. His house is in ruin, know. So
he's gonna be discovered for his embezzlement.
Yeah, so he'll probably lost everything.
Good, and then I hope Chris goes on to his good cushy job, and Mitch gets to spend 3 more years at the school.
Mm-hmm.
carrying on Chris Knight's tradition of being silly.
Yeah. In my secret hope is that the fictitious Real Genius sequel would be Val Kilmer now teaching a class. And so because we got to stay at the school. That's the Hogwarts.
It's the Hogwarts. We got to start at the Hogwarts each time.
Right. And I feel like we liked Mitch, but I don't think audiences would be bummed if we didn't see Mitch again, you know? And so just Val Kilmer returns and maybe there's a new, Mitch. And then we got to have Laszlo back for some reason. Because he was a fun character.
He was a fun character. I really liked Laszlo, and he is played by John Grease.
Yeah, and so he was great. Yeah, he was one of my favorites.
He was very great. I loved him a lot. So on a scale of 1 5-megawatt laser to 10 5-megawatt lasers, how many?
That's a lot of numbers.
It's a lot of numbers. How many megawatts do you give the laser?
Well, do I have the 5 megawatts? So I have to my rating. Do I then have to multiply it by megawatts?
Yes, you have to multiply it. You have to couple it to a ground state.
Okay. So then, in terms of 5 megawatt laser, I would give it a total of 35 megawatts.
Okay, what does that equal on a scale of 1 to 10?
7.
7?
Yeah.
Okay. I give it a 6.5. Because I thought it was really fun, but like you said, it was just a little bit slow in parts.
Yeah.
And as charmed as I was by Val Kilmer as a kid, I found him a little bit grating on this watch. Just a little bit. Just a little bit too much for me. Especially when he was just talking to people who were trying to be normal to him and he was kind of being a dick. And the way that he talks to the women when he's like, oh, have you ever seen a body like this in your life? And the guy's like, that's my daughter. And it's like, yeah, you don't get to just talk to women like that, buddy. So for that, I took away 0.5 megawatt.
No, you took 5 megawatt. Right, 2.5 megawatts
2.5 megawatts away.
Look, we're not the math podcast.
No, and we're not at Poly Campus Technical Institute, so we're not in charge of knowing how many megawatts things are.
Right.
What about a deep cut recommendation? Do you have one? I know that we really struggled for Splash, but do you have one for Real Genius?
Yeah, I think so. So it's not a comedy, but it's definitely the science people are smart and they're the main characters and everyone else just doesn't get them. I really want to revisit a movie that I really enjoy, Contact.
Okay.
And that reminds me of this one to where it's not just our main character, Jodie Foster, who's the smart one, but it's also kind of her competitors and antagonists are smart as well, But it's nice when science can take the driver's seat and be the good guy, like scientists.
Yeah.
And it's not just like like dumb scientists from the movie Congo or something like that. It's like it's nice when real science is backed up by it. Because I think scientists are the heroes.
I think so too. I love scientists. That's great. I've never seen Contact.
Oh, it's great. It's great. Yeah. No, Robert Zemeckis. It is sciencey, but it's also very entertaining too. It's definitely yeah.
I love it. I'll have to check that out. I want to recommend. So obviously, I can't recommend Big Bang Theory because I don't like Big Bang Theory.
Yeah, I concur.
Yeah, I don't think Big Bang Theory is good.
Yeah, no shade to people who like it, but I feel like it's not meant for people. It's like it treats nerds as the joke. It's made by people who aren't nerds.
Right. And my real scientist friends don't like it because they don't like being portrayed as like these one-dimensional boobs. But I do recommend, and I can recommend, Young Sheldon.
Oh,
Yes, it's streaming on Hulu. And it's great. It's really cute. Young Sheldon has a lot of heart, where Big Bang Theory is missing it, and it's of course narrated by the adult Sheldon. But the actor who plays the young Sheldon is just adorable, and really, it's a lot easier to forgive the young Sheldon for all of the faux pas that he commits by being too rigid in his thinking. So
Mhm.
I recommend Young Sheldon. And also, I have another deep cut recommendation,
Mm.
which is an episode of Supernatural called Sam Interrupted.
Uh-huh.
Let me look up what season it is. It's Sam Interrupted, season 5, episode 11, because it co-stars John Grease as a hunter who has lost his marbles. So he's like once again playing a character who has lost his marbles and gone a little bit crazy. But
Mhm.
Laszlo Holyfield is in it as a guest star.
That's fun.
Yeah, and he's great. So we didn't talk about it at all at the beginning of the podcast. Tell us now at the end, where can we see your movie, Nathan? How can
Oh.
we support your movie? Um, what's the best way to watch it? What's the best way to, once we do watch it, to support it and make sure that other people watch it?
We'll call this the shameless plug section.
Yeah, let's
Yeah,
do it.
so I, for those who don't know, I just recently did an independent film called The Last Movie Ever Made, and it's now on Amazon and iTunes. So yeah, locally produced here in Arizona. Yeah, it's about the world is ending, and our main character thinks that the thing that's going to bring meaning to his life is to finish his sci-fi movie from high school.
So he gets his friends together and they set out to make a movie before the world ends.
Yeah, and he's in his 30s. He's approaching his 40s, and he hasn't kept in contact with anyone. So it's also kind of about him making human connections.
Yeah. And it's great, and I highly recommend it. It's totally worth a watch. But so if people buy it on Amazon, that helps you, but they should also review it, right?
Yeah, that really does help because on Amazon, like, you can't really see the reviews, and it's really kind of buried with Apple. But on Amazon, it does help not only people who are trying to figure out if they're going to pull the trigger on it, like how many positive reviews it has, but from what I'm told, the algorithm will also push it on people the more reviews it gets.
Which is great. We want that. We want the algorithm to push it on people.
Yes. So yeah, I don't mean to be pushy, but I would certainly be thankful.
Yes. Be pushy. I think the movie deserves it. It deserves a pushy Nathan.
Thanks.
So yes, please do that. And while you're in the mind of making reviews, hey, review our podcast too. Go online and review our podcast wherever it is that you're listening. Give us a thumbs up, a star, a 5-star, a review, a rating. Tell someone about the podcast. Share it on whatever social medias you use. It helps us out a lot. It helps people find us. And if you are here with us all the way at the end and you're like, you know what I'm craving? I'm craving more talk with Nathan and Krissy. Well, guess what? You can have more. You can have more in our member Discord. If you become a member at True Story FM, you can get the member Discord and you can go on and chat with us there. You also get some extra bonus content at the end of each episode. And you get some extra access to behind the scenes at True Story FM. It's a lot of fun. It's only $5 a month, and we encourage you to go on to True Story FM and become a member. We appreciate it so much. If you want to find me in the real world, then I'm at the Neighborhood Comedy Theater in downtown Mesa, Arizona, doing improv comedy every Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night. It's a lot of fun. Come check it out if you're in the area. Oh, yay. And that's always the hard part.
Promotion's exhausting.
It is. It sure is. Thank you so much for listening. And while you're out there in the world, please keep the most excellent 80s movies podcast motto in mind. Be excellent to each other and
party on, dudes. We'll get it right eventually.
We will. What's up, dudes? It's your totally tubular friends, Nathan Blackwell and Krissy Lenz, here for the most excellent 80s movies podcast, here to urge you to become a sustaining member of the pod.
For just a few bucks a month, you can support the most excellent 80s movies podcast and get all kinds of rad perks and stuff in the mix.
Yeah, like for example, you get each episode a week early, as though you have your own personal DeLorean into the future.
Plus, you get special bonus content at the end of every episode.
And you know you want more of that sweet, sweet Nathan and Krissy banter.
Plus, you get access to the TrueStory.fm discussion board on Discord, so you can join the conversation there too.
So head up to TrueStory.fm today, click on our show page, and sign up to become a member today. Party on, dudes!